I want to thank the chairman for the hearing. To sit here and hear your home state talked about so much because of the tragedy that was there is difficult. So let me take this opportunity to thank all the members of the committee and Congress in general for the ones that made the effort to come to South Carolina and attend the funeral services for the Charleston Nine. I knew Clem Pinckney, served with him in the state capitol. So, it's personal. And I'm willing to acknowledge that the gentleman who, I'm not going to mention his name because the shooter isn't worthy of us mentioning his name. He's a murderer. And I'm willing to acknowledge he was radicalized in some way. But there are people radicalized in this country through Islamic theology, through right-wing theology, or left-wing theology. There's a lot of examples. I wonder even while we're having this hearing, because the President said on May 20th, so I'm here today, this was to the Coast Guard, so I'm here today to say that the climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security and an immediate risk to our national security. If we want to pay for this CVE side of DHS, how about end their involvement in climate change and national security threats and focus on the threats that are real after 9/11? We hear a lot about right-wing extremists, but we never hear left-wing extremists. But they're there. We hear the name of the shooter in Charleston, but we never hear the name of the shooter here in Washington, D.C. The shooter that was unsuccessful. And thank God that he was unsuccessful. But in the fall of 2012, Floyd Lee Corkins, armed with a semi-automatic pistol, 100 rounds of ammo, entered the offices of the Family Research Council here in Washington, intent on murdering 11 people there. Stopped by a security guard. There wasn't a security guard at Mother Emanuel. Stopped, fortunately. He had with him 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. In his own confession, he said he wanted to murder those 11 people and then smear the Chick-fil-A sandwiches on their faces. The gentleman was radicalized. He was radicalized by a group that's represented on the panel today. I started to object to the witness. But the Southern Poverty Law Center has a hate map. And on that hate map, they list the Family Research Council. Because the Family Research Council supports traditional marriage. The Southern Poverty Law Center disagrees with their political position. This gentleman in his own confession pointed to that hate map and the Southern Poverty Law Center as the reason for him going to the Family Research Council to commit that crime. You don't know his name because he was unsuccessful. But he was just in his intent as the Charleston shooter to murder 11 people. We want to talk about radicalization. Let's talk about both sides. Because the fact that they even have a hate map using those terminology flies in the face of what I saw in Charleston, South Carolina, where hate wasn't talked about by Mother Emanuel. Hate wasn't talked about by Charleston. Hate wasn't talked about by South Carolina. South Carolina is the epitome of what we should show in this country. When you saw the families of the victims look the perpetrator in the eye and say, "We love you and we forgive you for your act," the word hate wasn't used. But a hate map pointing to the Family Research Council radicalized a left-wing extremist. I'm using that term because we're hearing a lot about right-wing extremists. If you read Mr. Cohen's comments, it's all about right-wing extremism, but his group radicalized a left-wing extremist who wanted to commit murder just the same as the gentleman in Charleston. And so, let's be balanced in this. And let's try, as members of Congress that represent our states, to follow the example of the folks in Charleston that I'm proud of. Because I love every one of you. If we talk about love and forgiveness and following God's path, and we understand that we need to take the log out of our own eye before we try to take the speck out of somebody else's eye, that's a lesson that Christ taught us. And so, I don't have any further questions. I appreciate the leniency, Mr. Chairman. I think let's focus on keeping America safe from both radicals within our country, regardless of their flavor, and radicals outside this country that want to behead they want to behead every one of us as well as the Statue of Liberty because they hate freedom and they hate America. If we keep our eye focused on the ball and keeping America safe, I think that's the important part of this committee. I think that's why it was formed, and with that, I yield back.